Look at a map of the United States today. What do you see? State lines, private property, cities stretching toward the horizon. To most, this represents progress. It is the definition of a consolidated nation. But if you look closely, the lines on that map weren't drawn with pens. They were drawn with exclusion. The American history we are taught is a narrative of expansion. The history hidden between the lines is a narrative of subtraction. Today, we aren't talking about heroes or villains. We are talking about strategy, power, and the true cost of what we call the frontier. A continent was not just discovered, it was dismantled, acre by acre, through a system that turned the right to exist into a negotiable asset. It began with a dangerous idea: manifest destiny. The belief that moving west was a divine mandate. But behind the religious rhetoric, there was a relentless financial logic. To the settlers, the land was an inert resource, an underutilized asset that needed to be optimized. They didn't see forests or valleys, they saw timber, arable soil, and trade routes. The loss of indigenous territory wasn't a side effect of expansion. It was the central goal. They didn't just want the land, they wanted total control over the value that land could generate. Many believe this territory was lost solely on the battlefield. That is only half the truth. The most lethal weapon was the document. In 1830, the Indian Removal Act proved that law can be used to legitimize dispossession. It was a contract made in bad faith on an industrial scale. The government promised trades. They promised security. But the pattern was always the same: move the nations to distant, devalued lands where social structure and the connection to ancestral soil would be severed. It was a process of administrative emptying. They called it relocation. History, with the gravity it deserves, calls it the Trail of Tears. It was the moment when bureaucracy became the executioner of a culture. After the Civil War, the strategy evolved into something even more insidious: the Dawes Act of 1887. The problem for the government was communal ownership, the concept that the land belongs to the tribe, not the individual. How do you privatize what belongs to everyone? You fragment it. They divided the reservations into small plots and declared the remainder surplus, ready for sale. In just a few decades, nearly 90 million acres shifted from indigenous hands to settler hands. This forced privatization wasn't just a land movement. It was an attempt to destroy the social fabric that kept these nations alive. They didn't just take the territory, they tried to kill the idea of community. Today, what remains of the vast nations that once dominated the continent is confined to reservations, often on land deemed worthless during the gold rush. The common narrative is that this is ancient history. But how can it be ancient when it still dictates the economic structure of this country? The loss of indigenous territory is not a closed chapter. It is the foundation upon which the modern financial empire was built. What we see today, cities, highways, markets, rests upon the silence of those who were forced to retreat. The next time you look at a map, remember, every line drawn on that paper cost someone their existence. Perhaps what we lack today isn't more territory, but the ability to listen to the silence that was left behind.